Good morning. Happy Valentine's Day. Love is swell. It's so enticing. It's orange gel, it's strawberry icing. It's chocolate mousse, it's roasted goose. It's ham on rye, it's banana pie. Love is all good things without a question. In other words, it's indigestion. So don't bother to memorize that. It won't do you any good. Just a funny little poem by Dr. Ravi Zacharias, and it's not true. But I would like to tell you a true story that I heard Dr. Ravi tell. He grew up in India along with his family, and in the late 1960s, his older brother was living in Paris, France, and he came to his father, always Mr. Conservative. He said to his dad, "You know, Dad, I've always said, both when we lived here and when we lived in India, that I'm only going to marry the girl you choose for me. And I guess I'm ready now. Why don't you write to your sister in Bombay and let her do the hunting around, and we'll correspond back and forth and settle this minor issue." So his father wrote to his sister, and letters and photographs of prospective wives started coming back and forth. And his brother zeroed in on this one girl. He read all about her every evening and finally started corresponding with her himself. And believe it or not, the engagement and marriage were set with the two never having met. So his older brother was preparing to fly to Bombay with his father, and Dr. Ravi started getting really concerned. And he asked his brother, he said, "I just want to ask you one question. What are you going to do when you arrive in Bombay and you come down that jetway, down the stairway, and there you see a girl standing with a garland in her hand, and you say to yourself, 'Good grief, I hope that's not her. I hope that's somebody else.' Or she looks at you and says, 'I hope that's not him. I hope that's his brother.' What are you going to do?" His brother said, "Are you through?" Ravi said, "Yep." He said, "Write it down and never forget it." And this is what his brother said. "Love is as much a question of the will as it is of the emotion. And if you will to love somebody, you can." So I'm not suggesting that everyone have their parents pick out their spouse for them, nor am I suggesting that it's maybe a really great idea to never have met the person you marry before you're engaged. But I wonder if we understand that statement, the powerfulness and the enormity of it. It seems to me like today more and more people are so ready to think that love is just the feeling that you start out with, and when that's gone, then so is, quote, love. But I think that if we look at John 15 and Christ's example of love, we will know that it's definitely an action of the will and not of an emotion. Because he was the perfect example, of course, but this is what he said: "No one has greater love than this, than that someone would lay down his life for his friends." And I find that a real challenge. That's really what love is. And so in our everyday lives, especially with those we're in close relationship with, I'm challenged to understand that love is doing what's best for them and not for me. And I wanted to read a little story to you all that kind of goes along with what I've already said. It's called The Test. His name was Lieutenant John Blanchard, a soldier in basic training in Florida during World War II. One evening, he wandered into the post library and found a book to read. The feminine handwriting in the margins intrigued him, so he turned to the front of the book and found the name of the previous owner, a Miss Hollis Meynell. Blanchard did some research and found her address in New York. The following day, he was shipped overseas. For 13 months, the two corresponded by letter and began to open their hearts to each other. He asked for her picture, to which she refused, by saying that if he really loved her, it wouldn't matter what she looked like. Finally, the day came when they were to meet in Grand Central Station, New York City. She had instructed, "You'll recognize me by the red rose that I'm wearing on my lapel." So now let's let the young soldier tell you what happened. A young woman was coming toward me, beautiful, trim, blonde, eyes were blue as flowers, and in her pale green suit, she was like springtime come alive. I started toward her, forgetting that she was not wearing the rose. Then I saw Hollis. She was standing behind the girl, a woman with graying hair, but she wore a red rose on the rumpled brown lapel of her coat. So deep was my longing for the woman whose spirit had captured me that I approached her. There she stood. The face was gentle and sensible, and her gray eyes had a twinkle. I didn't hesitate. My hand gripped the small, worn blue leather book, which was to identify me to her. I squared my shoulders and saluted and held out the book to the woman, even while choking back the bitterness of disappointment. "I'm Lieutenant John Blanchard, and you must be Miss Meynell. I am so glad to meet you. May I take you to dinner?" The woman's face broadened into a smile. "I don't know what this is about, son," she answered, "but the young lady in the green suit who just went by asked me to wear this rose. And she said, if you were to ask me out to dinner, I should tell you that she is waiting for you in the large restaurant across the street. She said it was some kind of test." Apparently, Lieutenant John Blanchard passed the test. Would you?